Once again, a very good morning to each one of you. So, before we begin today's session, I would like to introduce you all to the eminent speaker for the day, which is Mr. Kushal Sanghvi. So, Mr. Kushal Sanghvi is every bit the media evangelist. A penchant for advertising, media, and communications drove him to this industry where he has thrived since last 22 years. A large part of his innings has been with media companies and digital or tech companies. He sees new media as an integral part of brand expansion. Globally and across Asia, his roles with iconic companies such as Reliance Group, Fremantle Media, Havas Media, the Times of India Group has led to unparalleled intelligence in media, thereby creating marketing success stories for those brands and has been pivotal to scale business and operations for those companies. And he's an MBA from NMI and loves playing mentor in terms of people management as a stepping stone to achieve targets and has been an active guest lecturer in leading institutes across India. He is a recipient of over 50 awards locally and internationally in the domain of advertising, marketing, media, content, digital marketing, and technology, and has been voted by various tabloids, publications, and medias. In his spare time, he loves to read, write, paint, and sculpt. He also loves all that is tech and is often always the first one to try new technology, gadgets, and more. With this, I would like to invite you, sir, to today's session. I request you to please take it forward and share your valuable insights with our students. Over to you, sir.
Sir, you're on mute, sir.
I know, of course, this is now the norm in terms of being able to have various sessions with each of y'all, using these sort of platforms. And I certainly miss sort of being in that sort of physical sort of zone to sort of be with almost 50, 100 people sitting together in a classroom as well. And we wait for those days to sort of come back as well. But let me try and sort of make your Saturday more meaningful and useful for the better, audience that we have right now as well. And while Alpa reached out to me a couple of days ago, and I was kind of contemplating in terms of what we should sort of go through, because I'm guessing that we'll be having a couple of these guest lecture sessions, a couple of your usual sort of stories and sessions you'll go through across various subjects you're learning as well. And especially in the times that we're in right now as well, I do believe that I think it is more a function of everyone playing a role in building his or her own brand. And of course, over the years, I'm sure in everyone's journey, there have been some brands which have appealed to them in more ways than one as well. Especially, I think, with sort of digital playing a very, very large role in the last sort of 1 decade or so. And sort of pretty much a lot of y'all have perhaps grown up in an age where a smartphone is almost a norm. I'm sure that at least with me and Alpa, for many years, we didn't even know what a mobile phone was until we sort of had. And I still remember those days when we still, for our communication, we began life something called a pager. This was sort of almost about 25 years back. I don't even know whether you all would know what the meaning of word pager means, because for y'all are living in this, world where literally sort of the Xiaomi's and the sort of Samsungs and Apples sort of have such a dominance in the ecosystem as well. So I think where I'm coming from is that sort of the life of brands and the life of companies today is fairly short-lived. And when I say that, it essentially means that to be able to be continually in the sort of curve or thought process, or even in the mind of people like you, and let's assume that we have sort of 50 different people here listening in as well. And I'm going to try and make this session a bit more interactive as well. So rather than keeping questions only at the end, if I was to just ask, 3 or 4 people to raise their hands and sort of just ask you what, according to you, or which are the first 2 or 3 brands that come to your mind as your favorite brands, what are they going to be? Either you guys can just text in, or you guys can raise your hands and just unmute yourselves and speak aloud as well.
Raymond's.
Okay. Anyone else besides Sandesh has any brand, his personal favorite or her personal favorite, which sort of immediately strikes?
Tata, Reliance.
Okay. Any others?
So we have in chat box Colgate, Amul, Tata,
Yeah, I
Reliance.
saw that as well, Alpara. I saw that as well.
Yeah.
So obviously, what sort of really sort of comes across in this entire sort of space of, when I just, without giving you any sort of cue, what really comes upon is that brands which typically have resonated with you, or which relate to you, or have some sort of a way to connect, are what really sort of come most easily to the mind as well. And that's really the story of what I call brands that have built success over a period of time, that no matter what their sort of longevity, no matter whether they've been 5 years old, or no matter they've been sort of 500 years old or 100 years old as well. But if I was to ask you that, what was the newest brand that you probably relate to, I'm sure you would have, perhaps answers like Zomato or a Swiggy or Uber, because these have been brands which have been around for like the last 3, 4, 5 years, maybe some even lesser than that. But because we are so into a space of consumption of them through our daily lives so often today, that they would come up as well. And if I was to perhaps ask you that, do you remember one of the oldest brands in India? Perhaps you would have thought of the usual iconic names like probably a Birla, a Godrej, a Tata, Reliance, and any of those names as well. So what really happens is we typically start to bucket then or segment a lot of these brands basis some personality around the brand, right? So when I was to sort of say that, typically if I was to say that, which according to you is the most sort of trusted brand, yeah, anyone would give me an answer again? When I use the word trust, what does trust mean to you? Which brand immediately comes to
Amul.
your trust?
Amul.
So Amul is for
Tata.
someone it is Maggie, for someone it is something else. And of course, it would have a variety of answers, also depending in terms of that comfort that that brand has built. And perhaps for one person, because he's sort of, from his birth, literally, he's been using Amul literally on his breakfast table and been seeing it all his life. That's the brand which relates to him. And for some college students, that Maggie has been almost impossible to live without. That becomes your brand to relate to as well. Yeah, but if I was to say that, which is the brand that you sort of literally sort of cannot do without today? Yeah, literally sort of for a moment, that brand is not on your sort of literally on your radar for about 2 hours as well. And can you think of a brand that you're sort of so obsessed with?
Geo.
Yes, Ajinkya, you want to go for that?
Yeah, Geo.
Geo. I would have thought that a lot of y'all would have said Facebook and WhatsApp and Twitter and so many other things, right? Because to suddenly imagine that, God forbid, that there is some issue with either technology, Geo stops working, Airtel stops working, or if Geo is working, but suddenly, like we had a few weeks back, right? That the Gmail stops working for about half an hour, and millions of people are wondering, oh my God, whatever happened? Google has sort of crashed, or if say WhatsApp is sort of not working for 20 minutes and you don't get notifications, you almost feel, oh my God, my life has come to a standstill. So that's really the power of sort of what some brands have built over a period of time. And I think what really comes more closer to this is it takes a lot of effort, passion, a lot of things put together to build this great brand. And we've seen far too many examples of success stories, but you must realize that, to create something as a brand which will relate to you and also sort of be personal in that sense. So the whole aspect today is that I think brands are playing that critical role more than ever, especially with COVID, to play a role which almost relates to everyone personally. So it's not about one to many any longer, but therefore what Sandesh said for Amul and what someone said for Maggie and someone said for Raymond and someone said for something else, there could have been that one element, or it could have been something which happened in that period of life which made him or her closer to that perhaps brand as well. And we've seen so many such examples in this period of time. I don't know whether sort of any one of you all have been regularly following a lot of the brand communication and a couple of the sort of marketing communication for a lot of brands, especially in this COVID time. But we've seen, I think, what I call suddenly this element of being more human, and not human as in human, but humane, which is humane, which is really touching your life in multiple ways. It is giving a message which is either a philanthropic message or for the larger welfare of society, or it's taking a route of providing or taking care of a cause and so much more as well. And suddenly because of that we've seen this massive incremental value for that brand, right? So, for example, the moment if a large company like Microsoft and say, for example, Bill Gates Foundation was to sort of do something which is more in a philanthropic nature to help millions of people being supported through COVID in the US of A or any part of the world or whatever, your sudden, I think, likeness for that brand or that personality that the brand is making also goes up that exponentially as well. And closer home, we've seen so many such examples. We've seen, for example, even companies like maybe a Paytm or probably a Ola or someone else getting out there, giving out food, giving out money, giving out various reasons to believe that they are actually helping thousands of people and their lives in this sort of period, and therefore we give them that additional score. Perhaps in some cases, that additional score is something that has much larger reason for you to feel closer. And I'm going to get, Alpa, do we have some help which I could get?
So
So, I'm going
yeah,
to try and request the moderator to sort of just Google up a video for me. It's a very
okay,
interesting video. Uh,
okay.
just Google up on YouTube for uh, Blue Jet Christmas.
Blue, just a sec. I'll
Yeah, just it's a pretty famous video.
Blue Jet.
Just type in WestJet Blue Christmas.
Okay. So if you
You'll
could just
probably see a you'll probably see a couple of videos on YouTube.
so if you could type in if in the chat box, or if you could text me, I am not able to find it. Okay, I have got couple of videos. So which one?
Just pick the one which is right at the top itself on YouTube. It's got some millions of views.
Yeah, yeah.
I want you to just share that, and if you can play it out for the benefit of everyone in this session as well.
Okay, so I'll download it and I'll share it in couple of minutes.
All right,
Yeah.
fantastic. So, I think what I was trying to basically, kind of relate this video to for all of y'all was to sort of try and put some sort of meaning or context to why some brands which sort of have even created some element of being associated with us in some manner have a larger impact on us as well. And speaking of this, what I want y'all, each of y'all, and I'm guessing that all of y'all are sort of students of currently marketing, management, finance, and a couple of other disciplines as well. And hopefully, going to make your careers in various domains pretty soon. But I think, given the context of the environment that we're all in right now as well, and the perhaps one of the largest reasons of choosing this session today with this topic was more to sort of tell you all that it's not about age, whether you all are probably 20 or 21 or 19 or 24 or whatever that as well. But I think each of you all should start building your own personality within the digital ecosystem. And when I mean that, essentially it means that given that all of you all are already spending a fair amount of time on platforms like Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or a blog or many other places as well. I think these are actually becoming platforms now that a lot of the companies, especially the HR teams, are going through to even understand in terms of whether, for example, in a opportunity to do a short list of candidates. Yeah, so when they knew they were coming to say, your campus, yeah, they would have already shortlisted and said, you know what, instead of meeting 80 people, let me try and zero down and probably only meet Sandesh and Aditya. And I know perhaps that, because I've sort of had some research that the HR team has done, and they would have had some algorithms they would have done that with. And speaking of which, I think all of you all, I'm sure, are fairly active on some platforms, right? I'm guessing everyone's fairly sort of active on Facebook or on Instagram. So one of the two, of course, happens to be that sort of tick box already. How many of you guys, play some element of writing, which means, you write short format or long format or even write blogs? Anyone does that out here in this group? Just has a ability to write long format. Anyone writes blogs?
Uh, I used to write content for Reliance Security. Uh,
All right. So
yeah.
Sandesh is one person I'm getting an answer from. So he used to write some stuff. Anyone else besides Sandesh who writes? No worries. It's not to sort of say that, Sandesh is the only king amongst the sort of, 40. But I think what I was essentially trying to sort of say is that everyone has a very large way of expressing himself today. And expressing, it's not about essentially just writing. A lot of people today, for example, are good with just creating content in terms of either even photography, pictures, storytelling in terms of videos. And what really happens is that there's a fair amount of personality profiling that gets done based on that, right? So which means today that since the whole World Wide Web is, kind of easily, looked upon by various recruiting people or even the world at large, right? We're able to almost say that yes, if I was to have read some of the pieces of content that Sandesh has written, I would have known that maybe his uh, typical way of writing is more about he's always talking about the planet, saving green, environment, or future technology, something else. So I'm able to try and create a certain persona of him, saying that he's a visionary. He thinks about the world. He thinks about the future. He's thinking about many things as well. And if I was to sort of say, for example, if I was to sort of say that I saw some people, yeah, let's assume I saw, that Smita or someone else was taking pictures of travel, of history, of places or whatever, I would know that yes, this is someone who's adventurous. So what really happens is that I think the digital landscape is ability for us to build certain types of custom type of people. Yeah. And then I could have various categories, right? So it's not about just having associations saying that yes, he's a geek or he's literary or a travel buff, but someone could be very much informed about fashion. Someone could be in terms of having a skill set about cookery. Someone could have a passion for reading. Someone could have all that. So those are certain inherent traits that one finds out. But what also happens is that digital allows us to know also different ways of finding out the unhidden, which means that through your communication, through the way you present yourself and you write about things, you also create a certain aura about yourself. So the way you sort of project yourself on social platforms is, I'm not saying that you need to suddenly switch off from what you're doing because you can't change the way you are as a person. But there is a style that you have created. There is a certain way that you express, and those expressions can typically be sort of either seen by what you do. Sometimes it is by the kind of people you follow or the kind of people that you sort of read about. So a lot of you all perhaps may not necessarily sort of put up comments and write back on people who you follow on Twitter. But even understanding that yes, these are the sort of people you follow on Twitter, I understand that this person is someone who's more wanting to know what's happening in India, someone who's perhaps following people all about sort of say technology, someone who's sort of all the time sort of reading about robotics or fast cars or Tesla or any of that sort, I associate that yes, he or she is very fascinated with the future of auto tech or engineering or any of those things as well. So it's a lot of all of these underlying areas that I think what happens is that we are realizing that perhaps that if I was to understand that this is really what X is and Y is and Z is, I will start therefore looking at every platform. Since Twitter is a format which is about self expression or about reading short format, or if you have a blog, it's about long format. And most importantly, given that, of course, now I think LinkedIn has allowed and given access to students even as early as 15 and 16 to have LinkedIn profiles. This was not the case perhaps 5 or 6 years back. You really had to be in a formal job environment. So students who never could come onto LinkedIn, but now of course that's changed. And because of that, we've got close to almost 67, 68 million people. So LinkedIn is, getting as, huge and big in India as well. I'm guessing all of you all probably use that platform. And while I'm talking about that, I especially would want to play a role in wanting to for you all to channelize yourselves of how you need to project yourselves on that platform as well. Because what really happens is, you know, few times companies are going to try and look at your Instagram page or your Twitter handle and something else. But most often than not, especially recruiting teams are going to sort of look at the personality that you built about your own brand on LinkedIn, right? And it doesn't mean that you have to have the ability to post. So amongst you all, 40 of you all, one of you all raised your hand and said, you know what, maybe we have that ability to write. But even if you can't write, it's about being able to even read. When you read about again different things which matter to you. There's an easy way today, for example, when you read and you feel closer to that subject could be on pharmaceutical industry, that subject could be on engineering, that subject could be anything about sort of, an FMCG industry saving the planet and not using plastic. But if you're able to start sharing those stories that you read, it essentially means that, of course, you're sharing it within your network. So chances are, of course, since you're a student, maybe your network could be, for example, 1,000, 2,000 people, for example, right? Which means that even 2,000 people see that this is really what maybe Alpha has shared, or this is really what Smita has shared, and perhaps start realizing what this person is of this sort of type. And what I'm trying to sort of say through this entire process is that you're building a certain personality for yourself to get people to realize what you're all about, what fascinates you, the kind of career that you want to be in. Today, as LinkedIn, it also gives you ability to put down your interests. You could write down interests in terms of either marketing, branding, media, or something. Someone could write down his interests are more in terms of Internet of Things, smart cities, something else, something else. Someone could very well say, my interests are completely about sort of, travel, hospitality, and something else. Or it could be multiple areas, right? And if that matches up to the kind of people that you sort of follow as well, so LinkedIn allows you to have great following as well. You could follow, for example, someone like Sundar Pichai, you could sort of follow someone like Bill Gates, you could follow someone of a different nature, or you could follow some people closer home as well. You don't need to follow only global leaders. But you could very well say that, what, for me, my sort of passion to sort of follow someone is maybe say Vijay Shekhar, or my passion to follow Sachin Tendulkar or someone. And it's not about sort of having a right or wrong. In that process, what you're also sort of starting to sort of do is you're almost raising your hand and telling prospective companies, what, these are the sort of people maybe best suited for startups. These are the people who are best suited for companies like Godrej and Tata and Marico and something else as well. But these are the people who are best suited because you will be able to show that ability of wanting to be in that particular domain. I would at the same time encourage that if you all can even start to write a little bit. Yeah. Today, for example, LinkedIn has the ability to sort of even You could even start by not necessarily writing a long format. You could very well only just write a two line and put a picture as well. What often you all would do on Instagram, what often you would do on other places and other sort of social platforms as well. But I think the power of visual content is now far more appealing, right? And we've sort of seen that, we've heard about that at various forums, that pretty much that video and voice and display are pretty much the new norm. So rather than perhaps, just having a post which is only, just text, you supplement that with either an image or something which, someone has a reason. And do this yourselves. Try and do about two posts in a week. Do even one post to start with in a week. And you sort of do a second one with or without a visual, and you will tell the difference. And the difference is purely, sometimes the engagement is not about necessarily about the 5 people who've liked your post or the 10 people that you've commented. It's sometimes even that LinkedIn will give you the ability to know how many views your post has got. So you would know that even if you didn't get 10 likes, you got 8, but how many people read it? And basis that you're able to, I think what you can start to sort of do is start to build your own network. Because at this early age, if you start to sort of do it, chances are when you're sort of at the sort of a good path in your career, you would have built the relevant different people, and your network doesn't have to be right now because you're in an environment being a student. It obviously means that your peers and your student friends would be part of your network. Your professors and your alumni could be part of that as well. Or you could have people like me and a couple of others who come and do guest tech sessions. So you could start following them as well. But start to look beyond people that you all know already, which means that you sort of start to sort of, all of you all said when I asked you that, you're like Raymond's, you're like Tata, you're like Maggie, right? So when you sort of know that these are the brands you associate with, all of them have pages now on social platforms. It could be Facebook, it could be even LinkedIn as well, right? So reach out to, therefore, someone in Nestle for Maggie, reach out to someone in Raymond's, and at least seek a connection. If someone is very senior, he may not immediately connect with you, but it doesn't stop you to perhaps still inbox the person, start some dialogue. If the person is very senior in Nestle or in Unilever or whichever company you write to, and he doesn't accept, it's fine. You can start to follow him. No one stops you to sort of follow them. You could follow a CEO who's of Unilever, follow a CEO of Colgate or Nestle, and he or she will be giving you a glimpse of really what's sort of happening. And over a period of time, you will start to realize that I think people will start, and I think you could almost take this as an exercise amongst your sort of even class. I would sincerely encourage Alpa and everyone in the institute to sort of try and push all the students to start building their own personalities on LinkedIn, because believe you me, in times to come ahead, there will not be a concept of a recruiting agent or a consultant. That business is gone. Given what's really happened with the pandemic as well, I know thousands of students who've approached me this year, especially because of they had confirmed letters of joining into companies in the month of May and June, but so many haven't got jobs, which means that if you're perhaps, I don't wish that for anyone at all, but God forbid you be in a situation that you put in hard amount of effort, a lot of your personal savings from your sort of family into studying as well, and immediately after that you sort of don't get the sort of job or role that you want to, right? Which means that therefore the power of LinkedIn will come in very easy to at least start to let people know that this is someone perhaps like Alpa, this is someone like Sandesh, this is someone like Aditya who's perhaps of a certain archetype. Then if I know that, he's someone who's terribly passionate about working in startups, he's a multitasker, he likes to, do PNL, or someone to be completely people driven. He or she is always talking about people management, diversity, inclusion, equal wages for everyone, and that, by default, that person will work very well in the human resource team as compared to a marketing role or a finance role or any of those things as well. So, I'm going to take a pause for a moment. I'm going to reach out back to Alpa and check if she's been able to get the video. So we're able to get back to relating to, I think, the brand concept as well.
Yes, sir. We have downloaded the video. I'll request Janvi to play it. Janvi, if you
Perfect.
could do the
Yeah, yeah, I'm just doing
yeah,
it.
yeah.
No problem, Janvi.
So there are many videos. The first with the many millions of views, we have downloaded it. So
That's
I
fine.
hope
Let's
it's the
just play
same
that.
thing.
No problem. Sure.
Okay, is this visible?
It is visible, but we can't
There's
hear
there's
anything.
no audio.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, one sec, I'll do that.
Janvi, it's still not audible.
One sec, I'll do it again.
No, it's not audible.
You can try and play it out from YouTube itself.
From YouTube, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I've done actually. Okay, I guess now it should play. Just let me know, I'll play it.
'Twas a night before Christmas, and all across the land, the good
Is it audible now?
Yes, it's audible.
Okay.
'Twas a night before Christmas, and all across the land, the good folks of WestJet had a miracle planned. On the eve before flying, the guests were in their beds. Visions of traveling danced in their heads. While out on the runway, something secret had arrived. It was left in the lounge. It was a Christmas surprise.
Hello there! Is that Cohen? What are you looking for Christmas this year, Cohen? A choo-choo train? Ho, ho, ho! A classic! Do you like Thomas? And what would Mommy and Daddy like for Christmas?
Big TV.
Yeah, big TV.
Ho, ho, ho! A big TV! You're looking fabulous!
Oh, I need to.
It's okay if you just want to stare at me as well. Ho, ho, ho!
What I need is new socks and underwear.
An Android tablet.
Is that William beside you? And Cameron?
Some Santa boots.
Stocking stuffing store.
While the guests told their Christmas wishes to good old St. Nick, WestJetters took notes and got ready to shop quick. It was a great rush with the 2 flights in the air to get all those presents. Not a moment to spare.
Sleigh bells ringing, there's children singing tonight. Lights are bright, I know it's a beautiful sight. Snowflakes fall in the world, it's snowy and white. Santa's coming to town, it's coming tonight.
Okay, Thomas, let's get it.
Christmas cheer and celebrations all across the line. This time of year, expectations waiting for the man.
Thanks for flying with us at WestJet. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of your flight.
Happy faces were all so merry and bright. Santa's coming to town, it's coming tonight.
But was everything ready? We all had to wait for the moment of truth at Carousel 8.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas! Where's the Hughes family?
The guests never expected what they'd asked of St. Nick would actually appear. It was all quite a trick. A WestJetter would say it was more than mere fun. Miracles do happen when we all work as one. We'll give Santa the last word on this most special night.
Merry Christmas to all! And to all, a good flight! Ho, ho, ho!
Thanks for the video. So
Thanks,
what I
Janvi.
wanted to kind of
Thanks,
do
thanks.
try and make a reference to this video was that I think even if it was 200 people who actually sort of have the opportunity of a lifetime flying before Christmas and using the power of technology, using a simple interface of a machine which asks you for a wish, and then that wish being fulfilled by using data to every family or every passenger's you know kind of wish being fulfilled at the carousel as well. I'm sure that if all of y'all were to have flown this airline, or would continue to fly this carrier pretty much all through your life, and essentially make sure that everyone in your family would do the same as well. So it's not really about that one gift of a camera or the one gift of a television set or even the socks or anything of that sort, but it is that emotional connect. And I think today what really brands need to sort of do is really reach out to y'all in those ways. This is actually a case study in itself. It's happened almost 5 or 6 years back, and often or not, it gets discussed in various sort of marketing forums because it's really the intelligent use of smart data. It's marrying, literally sort of every person's name, just making sure there's a personalization angle which sort of comes on. And imagine the beauty of this is really within just that little element of few hours. Of course, US being a large country, so even if it's a large carrier flying from the west coast to the east coast, it could take, say, for example, 8 or 9 hours. But within 8 hours, 7 hours, getting out there, getting all the gifts, making sure, you may also think for a moment, what, this is never possible in India. Impossible, right? A lot of your expression would be like, the US can do, but we can for sure. But nothing is impossible. I can tell you for a fact, if I don't know how many of you all perhaps have friends in Hyderabad or from Hyderabad, any of you all, that when the IKEA store was opened, inaugurated in Hyderabad 2 years ago, IKEA did something pretty similar. So when the store was launched in August of 2018, exactly 1 month before the store was being launched, they tied up with three different airlines in India. Everyone who lands into Hyderabad on the carousel, you would either get, few people would get big boxes, and when you open that box, you actually got just a coupon of 5,000 rupees, which you could essentially get to use for any purchase you could do in the IKEA store. It was a reason for people to get closer and buy things or experience the first of its kind IKEA store in India as well. Beyond that, every airline they gave out some three large big prizes. So three people got about 25K each, and they did this for a good period of 2 to 3 weeks, which means that from a marketing standpoint, they tried. Obviously, I'm sure people at IKEA India would have perhaps seen this case study of WestJet and tried to do something in their own manner here as well. Logistics of tying up with Rajiv Gandhi Airport in Hyderabad, making sure that happens. It's quite complicated as well. But having said that, I'm sure people who've even got that 5,000 voucher to use for IKEA would have felt good about it. And maybe once they've gone to IKEA, they would have felt a reason to sort of go there either next time. Many of them may not even be from Hyderabad. It could have been people just traveling to Hyderabad on work or for a vacation, a holiday to meet friends. But the fact of them then expressing this, so the point is not today for brands and personalities that get created, it has a huge viral effect. Today, when we see this video of WestJet, even after 5 or 6 years, is because the fact is that it's done such a good job that even after 5 years, we are able to relate to it, feel good about the brand, talk about it. And that entire word of mouth is what is really the large power of personal branding. Because what really happens is in an environment which is now getting more competitive, you've got to stand out from the clutter in multiple ways. You have to realize that WestJet is what Indigo really for is India. So WestJet is not the Vistara. WestJet is not what Jet was. It's a low cost, no frills airline. I'm sure today, if I was to ask you all, if someone who's traveled either, I don't know, for example, either say even a low cost carrier, right? It could be Indigo, it could be Spice. A lot of y'all would have even bad experiences saying, I had a 2 hours delay, I made a flight reservation, I canceled my ticket, didn't give me the refund, and so many things. And imagine that, because of all these, we start putting personalities of the brand, saying, you know what, if you've had two bad experiences on, say, for example, yeah, maybe any carrier, you would almost say, I'm never going to travel, you know, Air India now. And that becomes almost in your mind for some good amount of time until you perhaps hear of someone who's told you that, you know what, he traveled Air India, it was a good experience, and you may change. So what really is happening, that we're getting conditioned because of this world of the internet, because of the world of social media, because of the world of people expressing themselves, we're able to start building archetypes, personalities of brands, and to sort of say that these are the brands that associate well with me, these are the brands that sort of work fairly well, which don't work. Of course, this was a one-off sort of exercise of a case study. Of course, it's an expensive proposition, but today brands are doing multiple things too. Like I said, it is about creating that first impact, right? I don't know whether we have the time, but I still think we do have. I'm going to request quickly if we can just have, don't download a video now, Alpa.
Yeah.
Just play it out. Just sort of, I'm going to try and type it out here as well.
Yeah.
I'm going to type.
Okay. Yeah.
Have you found the video?
Yes, sir. Janvi is sharing her screen. Just a minute. Yeah.
No worries, no worries.
She's doing it.
No
Yeah.
worries.
Okay, so is it audible?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it is.
All right.
निकले जो तुम आज घर से फरमाइशों की फेहरिस्त साथ लेके, बटुए में बंद करके वो नोट 1000, तुम निकले भरी दोपहरी खरीदने बाजार।
माँ दिए?
हाँ जी ले ले।
इस चकाचौंध इस धक्का मुक्की में शायद तुम लेना भूल गए, ये कच्ची मिट्टी के पक्के दिए तुम साथ ले जाना भूल गए।
दे देना
अम्मा, दिए देना।
भूल गए बचपन में कैसे इनसे घर रोशन करते थे।
स्माइल।
तुम जिद करके बार बार 2 दिए ज्यादा लिया करते थे।
हैप्पी दिवाली।
अरे लल्ला, जब तक ये सब बिक ना जाए काहे की हैप्पी दिवाली। अरे तू रहने दे लल्ला, अब तू मेरी छोड़, खुश रह खुश रह। ये ले ये तो रख ले।
थैंक यू अम्मा। और आप फिक्र मत कीजिए, सारे दिए बिक जाएंगे। बाय।
इसी आस की मिट्टी लेकर मैं आशा के दिए बनाती हूँ, और हर दिवाली जर्रा जर्रा मैं इसी बाजार बिखर जाती हूँ।
गए तो आगे
अरसे बाद वो आज फिर यहाँ आया है। सालों बाद उसने इन दियों को गले लगाया है। बुझ गई थी उम्मीद की जो आखिरी मशाल, इस दिवाली किसी ने उस अंधेरे में एक हल्का सा दिया जलाया।
अम्मा दिए।
अरे अब एक भी दिए ना बचे लल्ला।
कहा था ना अम्मा, सारे दिए बिक जाएंगे।
इस दिवाली आप भी उम्मीद का एक दिया जलाएं, किसी और की दिवाली को भी रोशन बनाएं। हैप्पी दिवाली।
Thanks once again. So what I actually wanted to kind of just relate to was, I think we saw something which is a big festival like sort of Christmas and the cheer happening back in the US a couple of years back. And this is really because of the festive season coming around here as well. And I thought that something which really happened 2 years back, that, a brand like HP, which is typically for many years, if you all realize, HP has been a B2B brand, essentially selling its sort of various sort of printers and various equipment only in offices. In the last sort of 20 years, they've changed, become a B2C brand, instead of becoming more in the hardware space, making laptops, making home printers, and the entire business model is shifted, given that a lot of people in offices don't really have to have those massive printers. And taking that cue and trying to position therefore the family printer in that home, and keeping in mind that students and kids doing projects and whatever as well would have a printer, a small insight of just the concept of wanting to help that woman being able to sell her entire produce of diyas. He took this exercise of reaching out to people in his neighborhood, and you saw this magical creative as well. Of course, the power of visual, the power of communication, of course, that huge, I think, emotional connect which sort of has been built in the story. And what will come out is that it's not really what you would always see for brands, is that they create this entire sort of way to feel good, right? So all of you all seeing this commercial, some of you may have already seen it 2 years back, maybe have even forgotten it as well. But what you relate to is the fact that HP is a company which cares. HP is a very large international brand. So to think from international to think regional and think local, and then to go down to a grassroots and think this whole concept, which means that branding is not always today about being in that zone of being a US entity. When you come to India, you need to sort of narrow it down, make it more regional, make it more local, the flavor. So I think that's really what the power of branding really is now getting. It's not, in many ways, it's becoming far more, not just local, it's hyper local, and more than that, like I said earlier, it's personal. So which means that the brand which talks to everyone individually on social platforms, on Twitter or a couple of others, it starts making individual conversations, right? So when I'm speaking to Chaitali, I'm speaking to Sandesh, I'm speaking to Alpha, I will be direct with them, perhaps even the creative communication, which is why we see today, for example, when email communication comes to us, it almost seems personal, right? It almost means that it addresses you saying, hi, Smita, and then it has some context. And perhaps because of the element of being personal, you at least will open the email. Otherwise, more often than not, you will straight away just check box and you will delete. And this is really what personalization is all about. And we're getting more and more in that space of creating one level of feeling closer to those brands which appeal to us, and still, given the context that we spoke about, it is about us creating our own personality as well. So to really be different from that 140 more million people. How do I know that this is really what Sandesh is as compared to what Aditya is, right? If I sort of see those inherent characteristics through what you are either projecting, through what you're communicating, through what you're writing, reading, sharing, I think it's more critical ever than before. And I think COVID has played that massive role of making sure that, literally sort of we are going to be able to cherry pick. Yeah. So when companies otherwise in the past would have done, placements, they would have otherwise gone to campuses. I'm sure Alpa's played this role for so many years. She would have 40 different companies come, you go through a whole process. They would do screening, they would do interviews, they would do group discussions. A lot of that will get changed now. So fewer companies will come. Many would use platforms like Zoom. Many would understand, what already, that what, if I have to choose two people, let me study themselves already on just LinkedIn, and I say, and they will give this list from the beginning to the institute, and Alpha will know, what, these two people itself are people that Nestle has liked. And that's really the power that you've got to project as well. So that's really what I wanted to take out little time and be able to sort of say that, as much as we feel connected to brands, we need to connect with companies. We need to connect with people. We need to make our own stories. We need to sort of say something which matters to those people for them to connect with us. So start not tomorrow, but start today. If you can start creating even dialogues with people using social media, especially using platforms like LinkedIn as a professional space for students to get out there, start making stories, start making communication, start making simple ways to project. And it's not just about you, it's about even the institution, which means that therefore, as professors, as academicians, Alpa and the entire team has a larger role today to make sure that they project that institute as cutting edge, to sort of tell the world that these are the sort of students which come out from our institutes. And so all that stuff which was happening earlier, maybe through a nice fancy brochure, in the good old days, you would have a nice 20, 40 page. I've been to so many institutes, I've seen, fancy brochures, really well printed out. They'll give you CDs and, videos and stuff. All that is going to change now. It's all going to happen through a video, which you'll put up on maybe on LinkedIn, and companies will see that and will identify saying, do I need to go all the way to Pune for this institute? Do I need to go all the way to Kolkata? Maybe not. So the world is getting competitive. For you to stand out, you've got to create your own personality, and there's no harm at all. I must confess that there is no reason, if people think that they should stop doing things on what they're doing on Instagram or on Snapchat or God knows wherever. Don't do that, because what you are must be what you are. You should not be in a mold of changing your personality or trying to project something which you're not, because that's the worst thing to happen to you. Because if you're made of a certain type, but you're trying to project that suddenly that you love animals and you love nature and you love the whole world and you love all that, and if you don't believe in that, somewhere down the line, if someone's going to ask you a question saying when was, for example, suddenly the last leather industry stopped in China, and you don't have an answer, you'll fall flat. So it's good to sort of project in a certain manner which you relate to, and that's really, I think, the core of what you need to also take out time and understand. Take a sheet of paper and write down saying, these are the few things you have interest in. I'm sure you'll have hobbies. Your hobby could be sports, it could be travel, it could be technology, it could be gadgets for someone, it could be art, it could be cooking, it could be anything. Write it down. Keep thinking about it as well. I'm not saying that hobbies need to be really put in the biggest manner on a LinkedIn profile. No. But the point is that within the hobbies, there could be certain interests. And those interests could be, for example, in terms of something which is of matter to companies. If, for example, the interest is all about, hypothetically again, if the interest is all about saving paper, for example, right? And therefore it means to sort of not cut trees or whatever, or X or Y or something else as well, or whatever. I'm sure companies which are really very, very closer to sort of really sort of putting that as their corporate mission statement to sort of take care of the planet or whatever, very likely that maybe if Akshay or X or Y, whoever has sort of spoken about that, chances are you'll be in that wish list to get hired. And it could be for different things for different people. Someone could be having an interest something which is completely different. Someone could have an interest in scuba diving, or anything at all. There's no harm in writing about it, talking about it. You never know, you could get a job in maybe a large travel company as well. So don't restrict yourselves to sort of feel. I think there were times when people say, oh god, you know what, how can I tell the world that I like to cook? Today, cooking is not at all something which you should feel shy about. Some of the largest companies in the world today are food tech companies. You all have seen valuations of Zomato and Swiggy, and not just them, but all over the world, suddenly gone through the roof, right? Today, especially in the environment that, at least so many more home chefs have been made. Suddenly people realize, if I have time, let me start baking cakes and make this a separate business, and let's start feeding people cakes. But you never know, that business kicks off, that company will suddenly become the next 5 million company and become the home bakery online. So that's really something from my side. I'm really happy to take questions, to feel that if some people have questions about their own personality. I know that, of course, being a Saturday morning, it's always a tough one to sort of, literally condense stuff in just 1 hour. But I must confess that this is not the end of the world of you and me. Speaking of platforms, I'm sure all of you all can reach out to me. It could be on Twitter, it could be on LinkedIn, it could be on a blog. LinkedIn is, of course, the easiest. So, start following, start writing. You could inbox me. You want to have any questions for yourself in your career, what to sort of play out for individuals. Happy to sort of do that, and, always there for you all. Any questions? I'm going to throw up, like, we have time for a few questions.
Yes, sir. I have a question.
Sure, Sandesh.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for your creative thought and all the branding activity you have given us. Uh, I have a question like while doing brand placement activity, what all parameters or what all points we should like keep in mind, or we should move forward with those things while doing brand placements?
When you say placement, just what is really in your mind? Meaning, when you're spending money,
Uh,
or what?
yeah, kind of that one. Spending money and or a kind of awareness kind of thing.
See, I think Sandesh, especially with the way the world has been impacted, any spend that you're going to be doing on behalf of a company in terms of media spending or whatever, it's all going to be linked in some way to the business goals of the company. Yeah. So gone are the days when you suddenly say, you can go back to your boss and say, I want 2 crores. I'm going to do a campaign for thumbs up, and I want to just do some brand building campaign. You're going to be questioned whether, for example, every single element of that money being spent. So I think one is to understand in terms of the medium that you're spending money on, whether it is television, whether it is print, it is radio. Understand that, of why that medium being used. More than that, once you decide that, even if it is TV and digital and something else together as well, is it finally linking to some offtake in sales? Is it linkable to something else? And I think, especially given that, of course, technology and digital media allows a lot of that today as well, you are far more easier to perhaps get a sign off on a digital budget, because it is, easier to understand, because they know every single thing, right? How many people have seen it, watched it, clicked it, gone out there, filled up a form, their entire process, what I call the sales funnel, or even their entire IDA curve, right? So what we study in marketing and advertising and all those things, building attention, interest, desire, action, you to sort of build up the entire pyramid is far easier as compared to sort of suddenly. So you're going to be, almost as all people who are going to be having roles in marketing will have reasons to now have being able to show how it's going to impact some KPI. It could be sales, it could be brand image, it could be anything at all. I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
We should have, time for 1-2 questions if someone has questions.
So meanwhile, students take ask you some questions. I have a question in mind. When we talk about personalized branding, and we talk
Yeah.
about ourselves in this, because now it's completely digitalization in terms of getting into communication platform or interviews. You said office meetings and everything is digitalized. So how do we brand ourselves? Because people are very shy. Like for me, I was very shy, camera shy person. I was very reserved in kind of getting in touch with people on conference, on a video call. But years down the line, when we have gone through this, the confidence has built up. But for the students, the day they have stepped in this institute, the first lecture started with Zoom. So how the people should students should build the gap of this. And because some people have fear in their mind, how should I raise the question, and how should I get into the class? Am I If I am wrong, what will happen, and all those stuff. So what are the key major factors students should focus on in terms of this digital personalization, personality development they should be focused on?
I would honestly tell all the students that, what, no one is God gifted to really have either the ability to be able to have great communication skills, or no one necessarily has every A plus going in terms of. A lot of people think that, what, I don't really look as good on the screen, and so many different things which come into your mind or perspective, right? So I think remove all those social taboos. I think just be yourself, and it will take some time. But I think every person will have the ability, or I think the process of fine tuning himself. Yeah. So take the time out and start to build your own way of even just being presentable. And presentable doesn't necessarily mean wearing the right dress and sitting, or wearing the right jacket and sitting for a Zoom call. That doesn't help. It's really about just being yourself, being easy, being comfortable, being natural. Then I've done really, I think, I'm sure all of you all live your life on Zoom. I've been doing it as well for literally the last so many months as well, right? There are times when we have Zoom fatigue. We're like, enough. I want to just switch off today. So when you sort of get done with that as well, but I'm sure that everyone didn't know this is going to be a world, and if this is going to be the world for tomorrow as well, just the ability to even some people take effort to start interacting easily. I would really encourage, like for example, in this class we had 2 3 people who volunteered easily and asked, right? But I think the people who start voluntarily doing this are people who are able to make that ability for people to get noticed, right? So, for example, for me, I think because I know you for so long, I of course know your name, and I'll not forget it all, right? But if I was to ask, myself after 1 month, maybe, because I do so many of these at so many institutes all the time, I might perhaps only remember Sandesh or someone else because either he or she answered something, asked something, or whatever. So I think that element of interaction, the interaction could even probably happen even on a chat box. It's not necessary to be on video mode. You could even have a lengthy question, or you could have your own intuition of interaction. And I think today that element of being engaged itself is reason. I think when companies are now doing sessions of planning interviews with, say, for example, if I was Unilever and I was meeting people on a Saturday morning, the entire batch of 50 students, the 5 or 6 who would really interact would be people who stand out. So try and not be passive, but be active. Active in terms of either even just chatting, raising your hand, reacting, because everything gets noticed.
Thank you, sir. Guys, any questions?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, Harsh.
So, yes, sir. So you mentioned about starting or making some content on LinkedIn, like one post or one write-up a week. So my question was, if that should be a hobby-specific post or a career perspective specific, because there might be instances like a person might have hobby at one end and career at one end. So hobby is just like a creative aspect of his. He may not want to pursue his career in that specific. So what do you suggest on going content on a hobby specific or a career specific or blend of both that will keep him engaged in this?
Ideally, Harsh, you must realize that LinkedIn has been built. So when Jeff Weiner built LinkedIn many years back, it was built as a professional platform. Of course, now all of us see that even LinkedIn is becoming like Facebook, right? suddenly people put up the most weirdest posts and all sorts of things on LinkedIn, which is not what it should be. So try and be as professional as possible. So it must be either in terms of your interest, your academic knowledge, your all of those areas. Once in a while to have a post, and you can now of course have that element of trying and be thoughtful of what you post at what time. So to become successful on platforms like LinkedIn, I've been on the platform for too long as well, so I can tell you what works, what doesn't, and all that as well. But if you really want to pick out something of your interests or hobbies, do it on a weekend, right? So on Saturday and Sunday, there are lesser people anyways using LinkedIn. Maybe more people using, I don't know, maybe perhaps Instagram and all the other things as well. You could your own research in your own classroom as well. You're going to pop it to LinkedIn maybe for like 2 minutes as compared to maybe 20 minutes on a Monday or a Tuesday. So be as professional as you can. Write things which matter to you. Read things which matter to you as well. Yes, if you have an interest of either cricket and therefore IPL, if you were to suddenly talk about Virat's successful innings and suddenly your passion for cricket or whatever, you could do one post. But I would never encourage that to be a regular thing that you would do, because otherwise you will think that you've suddenly Harsh become like that next Facebooker on LinkedIn as well.
Thank you, sir.
Any other question, Alba, we have?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, is this we can use Insta as a career opportunity? If yes, then how?
Instagram is an extremely sort of interesting platform, Aditya. I think what sort of really happened, especially in some countries like Brazil, some countries in LATAM, in Europe, and even in India, with a certain population, especially between 18 to 25, more people use Instagram than even Facebook. Yeah. So therefore, they're sort of more active there in terms of their own profiling, their own content, and many other things as well. And uh, I think the larger plan for Facebook as a company is at some point to really put everything together. Today you have one Facebook is separate. You today have one huge Instagram which is sort of separate. You have an you know WhatsApp as well or whatever. But ultimately it's owned by the same company. And therefore Facebook would know that this is the same Aditya who's also on Instagram, also on WhatsApp, and pretty much that, right? So I think creating a personality on Instagram is equally important, especially with its sort of ability of giving you the ability to put pictures, videos, and so much more as well. I would never encourage that sort of you become very, very frivolous on Instagram. If you need to be very, very overtly friendly, so I know for a lot of people, for example, they start, especially at your age, or I'm sure many of you all in the class would have boyfriends and girlfriends as well. I'm not saying that this is the age you should have that as well, but don't be so much in terms of putting your love and mush up there. Use it discreetly. Use it on direct messaging platforms. Use it on maybe platforms like maybe a Snapchat, maybe something else. But the worst thing to do is really putting your emotions out there. And especially what happens is, sort of, I've seen a lot of people getting too overtly romantic and all of those things. I mean, that's what you do is, you should try and do your own private spaces. So don't really sort of start having those, some people, especially those 19-year-olds, 18-year-olds, because ultimately at some point, these channels all get picked up by people as well, right? So you don't want to be seen as someone who's continuously listening to romantic music and continuously sort of showcasing that as well. So there's a fine line of what you should do and what you can do, and there are some platforms which sort of do it on platforms. So, for example, however, how many times ever you want to blow kisses to your girlfriend, do it on maybe WhatsApp, but you don't have to tell the whole world on Instagram that, hey, you know what, that Aditya is in love with Aditi. Hypothetically, I don't even know whether you is Aditi in your life, but I'm just saying that if there is someone, don't really express it out there.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, students, as well as thank you so much, Dr. Kushal. It was indeed a wonderful session that we earlier also we had a couple of chats, and your session previous sessions were also classic, and indeed this was one of the best, saying that in explaining in terms of branding, how important it is in terms of social media on the platform like social media. So thanks so much for highlighting a peak point such as regional branding, which is very much important in a country like India, and it definitely it is connected with the emotions, and that's how the market survives or sustain in country like India. As well as throwing aspects on LinkedIn, definitely that's the medium of connection, where you can professionally build your rapport with all HR, all other industrialists or industry experts. And that's how the first session with my students, this batch or the every batch, the first thing what I ask students is to put up their LinkedIn, actually have their LinkedIn profile first, to put in and then connect, and mutual connections only help you to brand yourself in a platform like LinkedIn. So that's how it is. And
Well,
thank you
I'm
so.
glad. I'm sure Alpha, you're sort of really playing a fantastic role, sort of guiding all the students as well. And you know, feels good to sort of know that a lot of the sort of academicians are now really sort of pushing the students to be more engaged on
Yes.
LinkedIn as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much on behalf of Vidyalankar School of Business, and we would like you to associate with you further for in many aspects, in coming future, near future. Yeah.
Sure. Happy
And
to sort of, kind of do another session sometime and sort of
yeah.
not necessarily sort of literally, but at some
Yeah.
point, if you really want to do a session which is on, I don't know, artificial intelligence, you want to do a session on big data, something else as well, happy to sort of do that with you all as well. But wishing you guys all the best in your careers. I would want that the best happens for you all. I would want that if you have any questions, reach out, connect, follow whatever you guys want to on LinkedIn as well. Stay safe and have a good weekend as well.
Thank you, sir. Thanks,
Thank you, sir.
Janvi, and
Thank you so
Thanks,
thanks to
much.
sir. Thanks, Alpha.
yeah.
Thank
Thanks.
you,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye. 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 Take care. Thanks.